running and recording. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. All right. So, nope, that is not what I got rid of my buttons. Hang on a second. A couple of technical. I don't know what that did. It's fine. It's all fine. Technical difficulties. Buttons have moved. So it's Monday night. So we know what time it is, right? It is time for Insights with Alicia, how we get together every Monday. One of my favorite things, to be with you all and to hang out and get to chat and talk about fun things. So for those of you who are new, I am Alicia Sweezer, owner of Who Knew Healing. And the reason we get together every Monday night is because I wanted to start sharing some things. It was an awareness I had, and I teach my clients lots of things. I get lots of awarenesses for myself, and I wanted to find a way to pass those on to other people. So we get together every Monday night now. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm an intuitive life coach, intuitive mentor, animal consultant, psychic medium, and I love helping people and animals. So hopefully you have your favorite drink with you every Monday like we do. I have my iced tea as usual. It's like a new one. It's a hibiscus. It's super good. Super, super good. So what are we going to talk about tonight? And what we are going to talk about is what I call embodiment. And so before we get to that, though, I am going to share a really cool story. I sort of gave a little sneak peek for you guys when I did my video clip the other day that I was going to tell this really cool story. It's a instant manifesting story, which I don't always get instant manifestations. I'm going to mess that up tonight. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, which I was just talking with someone recently where it's like when it's the big stuff, right? It's we want that instant manifestation of the big stuff. And it happens. For me, less frequently. I have a little more gradual in my manifestations, but this was just a really, I couldn't even believe how it happened. And there was so much energy released in it that it blew like I was kind of toast for a couple of hours. Like there was so much release that my brain was just like, and we're done. So, all right, here's this really, really cool story. So, I did my taxes this year, right? Like I do my taxes every year, and I have someone that helps me with that. And we use TurboTax, that kind of thing. And she's amazing. And I'm still learning my way around some of the business stuff, right? It's all this learning. And I always get super freaked out when I do my taxes. Like I fully buy into the fear of the IRS and feel everyone else's fear of the IRS as well. And because I've seen them do illegal stuff, and we're not going to get into the government IRS kind of thing, but I've seen it with my own eyes, some illegal things. So there's just always this massive fear of the IRS in this country, right? And so even though my taxes are pretty straightforward, I track literally everything, I claim everything, there's just that fear. So I will literally be following TurboTax and I am a nervous wreck the entire time. So that just sets the stage for this story for you to understand my level of fear and anxiety that is around this. And so I did my taxes like beginning of February this year. And there was something in there about the self-employment part, right? Because on top of all the regular income tax, we all pay, people who have their own business, we have to pay an extra 15% of self-employment tax. And I'm still, like I said, thank God for TurboTax because it walks you through this stuff, but I'm still learning some of that. And I do it, but I don't know what TurboTax does in the background. I'm just grateful it does its thing. But there was a part of it where I had asked, I didn't understand something and it was like, oh no, that'll be fine. And I was like, all right, cool. Not a big deal. And then probably about a month later, I was gaining more education around taxes. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if that actually got done in my taxes. I don't know if I did that, right? Because it's all this business stuff. And right, logically, it's like, well, I'll just have someone look at it next, when I go to file my taxes next year. If I need to do amendments, then I will. It's not a big deal, right? I didn't have that much to claim on taxes anyway. But there's still this fear that goes in there all the time. And literally every few weeks, probably like every 3 weeks, I'd get the thought in my head about this tax thing. And then am I going to be able to fix it next year? And oh, what if they add on millions of dollars of fees? Literally, that's how irrational my fear is from this. Like, I'm going to jail because I messed up my, small self-employment tax or whatever with my business. And I'm not driving around a Ferrari and that kind of thing. So it's not like I had millions of dollars in income to claim, but my fear is that big. And so it's what? October, we're at October 3rd today. So end of September. So this is like 7 months that it would come in, and I would use my tools and I would ask questions, and I'd be like, of course I'll be able to handle it next year, right? I'll manifest an awesome CPA if there's even anything to do. But it was always there. And it was just so, I like I said, I would do everything around it spiritually, intuitively, and it just always still had an anchor. And I never got to that anchor. And so crazy enough, last week, I was on a Zoom for a health thing. And the next day I was going to the Small Business Expo, which you guys are going to hear about. And one of the keynote speakers for this expo had sent out an email that they were going to do a webinar. And I was like, okay. And oddly enough, it was tax stuff, but this company was a tax resolution. So like when you owe the IRS like hundreds of thousands of dollars and that kind of stuff, like these are the companies you hire, right? But I thought, hey, free education and learning more about taxes, why would I not? And of course, he had a really cool offer that if you watch the webinar, you get a discount if you ever need his services. And I was like, I'm not passing up a coupon on taxes, even though these are services that I'm not going to need. So I got off my health Zoom and I literally logged right onto this one, and it was kind of already started. They said hello, and he's doing his PowerPoint. And about 2/3 of the way through, I'm like, this is, there's lots of code and all kinds of stuff that's over my head. But what's growing this entire time, so we're like 45 minutes in now, is my fear of doing my taxes wrong, right? So it's like, oh, now here's the tax stuff right in front of you. And so for 7 months worth of stress of it always just circling around in the back of my head, it's now in front of me because there's a tax guy doing, all this tax presentation and showing how, because like the IRS is going to hire tens of thousands of agents and then over the next 10 years, right? We've all heard that. And they're going to be going after people, particularly small businesses, because of like worker classification issues and that kind of stuff, which is just me, but you can still feel the fear. Like even watching, when you're an empath, watching presentations like that, you feel other people's fear. So even everyone else that's on the webinar, I'm now feeling them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so it was so uncomfortable. And I was like, you know what? I have to use the bathroom because I've been on Zoom for hours, right? And I was like, I gotta go. So I go use the restroom. And while I'm in there, which is like 30 seconds, I'm like, all right, universe, once again, I'm asking the questions, trying to manifest, solutions to my tax fear. And I was like, if this needs to be handled, have the person show up. Like, let's just do this. I'm so tired of worrying about this. Not even thinking, because like I said, the company that was doing the webinar has nothing to do, they don't do your regular taxes. I'm sure they can, but that's not their services. Like what I need was not what this company was offering, but I was just in there like, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of this. Like I want it gone. And I have asked these questions before over the last 7 months. And so I finished there, I run back in to Zoom, and I'm watching, and one guy asks a question. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I got the awareness. It was super scary. And I said, I have a question. And the guy was like, yeah. And I said, I think now that you're talking about self-employment stuff, I think I may have filed my taxes incorrectly. I said, not on purpose, just for lack of understanding and, that sort of thing. And I was like, I'm really afraid that I did this. And now I'm starting to see like, oh, I may have made this mistake for the last 3 years, right? Because I've been in business that long. And he says, you use TurboTax? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, most likely TurboTax probably did. I was like, yeah, but we clicked out of that screen. And I don't think there was anything in that screen. Like, I don't remember entering any numbers. And he was so sweet. He was like, you know what? He's like, I got you. He goes, I will look over your tax returns for free. He's like, when we're done here, I'll send you an email, you send them to me, and I will look over them and see if there are any issues for you, absolutely free. I could not believe it. that is not where I was going with my question. There was nowhere in this where I was thinking this is going to be the person to help me. And nowhere in was I expecting an offer like that. I was just asking the question so that how it tied into with his webinar, how I would understand. And I was blown away. I was like, seriously? Because now I got to practice receiving, right? That's the thing. When you ask the universe for stuff, then you get to practice the receiving, because in my mind, I had every intention of like, it's got to be done the hard way. I've got to pay someone to do this for me. It's going to be a bunch of issues. It's going to be stressful and worried, and all that story that we tell ourselves when it's around something that we have a lot of fear. And he was like, yes, not even a big deal. So I kid you not. So in the time that it took me to go to the restroom and come back, manifested the person to help me with this situation. Now, in addition to that, within 30 minutes later, the entire thing was resolved. Like, we finished the webinar, I emailed him, he looked at them, emailed me back, done. And I did my taxes properly. So all this stress of 7 months of it just weirdly circling in the back of my head, thank God TurboTax took care of me and was like, no, we got you. Even though you may not fully understand it, we have you. So I'm not going to jail. Like, I even emailed him that. I was like, thank you so much. This means I'm not going to jail. And of course, to him, it was 5 minutes of easy peasy, not even a flicker in his day. For me, 7 months of stress was released, and the instant manifestation occurred, and my body healed in that moment. Like I said, there was such a weight that was lifted off of me. And I was like spacey, like you have the head cold where when you release so much energy like that, it's sometimes like, you're like, I'm just going to hang around for the next hour because I can't even have a thought in my head because there's so much releasing that's going on. And it was just crazy, because when you have those instant manifestations, and a lot of it has to do with not being attached, which I'm sometimes good at and sometimes terrible, as you have all heard me through all the stories I share every Monday night. And because I wasn't thinking of this man as the person to do it, because that's technically, right, that's not what his service is. It's not checking your tax returns just because you think you may have done the wrong. It's when you actually get a letter from the IRS, like he's the guy you call. And he's an amazing guy. Like, I think it's Tax Resolutions is the name of his company. His name's Ronnie. He's amazing. And it was life-changing in that moment. And so I wanted to share with everyone, like, what an instant manifestation looks like, and that they do happen, right? Because there's so many times it's so easy to get in doubt. It's so easy to sort of lose faith in ourselves, right? Because it's our part, and the timing, the universal timing, and that I don't always have a lot of patience when I'm manifesting for myself, because I want to be doing stuff now so that it moves you forward and I can do more and help more and that kind of thing. And I love, someone writes in the chat here, speed manifesting, right? I love that. And so it's just a story I wanted to share, because this whole this whole thing of how I even ended up at the expo was, one, some of the stuff I'm going to share, but it really was just how stuff lines up. I was reading a magazine a couple of weeks ago. I was volunteering, and I talked about the Small Business Expo, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to go to that. That is not, if you guys caught my video clip, that's not something I ever thought I would say. That is not, like, those kind of things are not fun for me in any way. Well, in the past they weren't. And when I went last week, I had an amazing time. And I'm going to get there, I promise. I know I keep saying I want to talk about it, but it just lined up. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to go here. All right, I'm going to go. I happened to get on the webinar the day before. My tax thing miraculously, right? For me, it was a miracle, gets changed. Nowhere in that did I see that happening. And that's where we talk about that creating and manifesting isn't linear. And I really like my stuff to be linear, and it's not. So I knew that I was supposed to go to the expo, had no idea what that was going to look like or open up, and had no idea that my tax fear of something I may have done wrong by accident was going to get alleviated. So it was just really, really cool how all of it lined up. You know, we talk about synchronicities and all that kind of stuff, where it's like, sometimes you just got to show up. I didn't know why I was supposed to be there, but I knew I was supposed to. And so much can happen when we just say yes. We're like, yep, I'm going to do it. Because you guys have heard me say so many times about, like, as humans, we want to see all the steps, right? Because we want to make sure that we're going to feel safe in all of the steps. And the universe is like, oh, humans, we know if we show you all the steps, you're not going to do them because there might be an uncomfortable one in there halfway through. And you're like, nope, not going to do it. So when our humanness gets in our way, it can be quite challenging sometimes. And then when we let go, really cool stuff like this happens. And I don't have to worry about my taxes anymore, or at least not the taxes I've done so far. So that's my story. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you see stories, you recognize it, and then you see the speed manifesting in your life. And I would feel like sharing any of those stories. I would love to hear it. I always forget to say this, but those of you that are watching on Facebook, I do not have the ability to see your contacts. So please, or your contacts, your comments. See, I'm all excited about my story. Your comments. So please join the Zoom if you want to be part of the chat. Okay, so what are we going to talk about tonight? We are going to talk about what I call embodiment. So embodiment isn't about doing or being something else. We are already it. It is about, in my opinion, owning, integrating, and recognizing who we already be. And it's about this awareness, right? This awareness becoming part of our conscious working mind. And right, it's a lifelong process because we are always growing. So I see it, and I believe it for myself, that this particular transformation happens every time we grow. And it's when we realize, like I'm saying, with our conscious mind, I always point to the front because you guys have seen me where I'm like, it's the front, like our conscious mind, like we're always working and growing and transforming. That's how it works in my body. Like back here, it's always going on. And when it makes its way to the front is when it's in my fully conscious mind that I'm processing with my brain and my eyes are seeing accurately. So it's when we realize we've become the future version of ourselves. So it's that place of like that person we know we're growing towards when we've actually reached that next level, that next stage, but it's the realization and the integration that this is who we are. And when we have that transformation, we then start to behave, think, manifest from this new version of ourselves. And there's actually a scientific name for the biological change that happens in our brain when this process goes on. I just never remember it. Like I was so excited when I saw it in a book one time, and I was like, because I knew intuitively that happened, but I was like, oh my God, there's an actual scientific word. It's kind of like people who have body dysmorphia, or even anyone who maybe weighed a certain amount and then they lost weight. It takes time. Like they can look in the mirror and they logically know that they've lost weight because their clothes feel different, right? And their eyes are working correctly, but it's in the processing in our brain. They will see themselves still as the person before the weight loss, because there's a delay in your brain changing the pathways and becoming part of your consciousness to where what you're actually seeing in the mirror is reflected in your consciousness. So I hope that's making sense. And this is actually one of my absolute favorite things that I get to do with my clients is reflect back to them their progress. Because when you're in it, you don't always get to see the progress you're making, because we only, usually, I'm guilty of this, measure by absolutes, right? 100% doing or 100% not doing that behavior, or 100% not having those thoughts anymore, or having those thoughts. We don't see the 1,000 steps in between. And those 1,000 steps really make a difference. And so when I get to say back to my clients and show them, like, you didn't slip into people pleasing or go straight to the negative self-talk, when they choose something functional versus a past coping mechanism, when they recognize something in themselves that they chose differently in that moment, meaning they're using their tools, they're healing, they are being the next version of themselves. They are embodying that. And one of my favorite things is when they tell me, they're like, I got triggered, but then I remembered. And then they're like, sometimes they hear my voice in their head, which I totally get, because I've done that with people too. And they remember that they don't have to prove themselves anymore, right? They don't have to have this conversation with someone. They don't have to answer the entitled why question. They remember to pause and do the internal check and recognize if they're in a full enough place to have a conversation or enter into a situation. They remember to respond versus react. Like those are so many of the big ones that are life-changing for people, that because they still do it once in a while, they don't recognize that they're not doing it 80% of the time now. And like I said, there's that delay in the process of where it physiologically takes time for our brain to make that change. And I love because I make a big deal about it in the beginning, even when it's one little shift and they're like, what is wrong with you? It's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, oh, but it is. Because one, they get to practice receiving compliments, and it is a big deal. And because they don't see the big picture. They don't see the transformation that's coming for them, but I do. And it's all about catching one thought, catching one emotion, catching one behavior, because that awareness changes everything. And then after we have those awarenesses and we become aware, we get to embody. So what does embodying look like? I'm going to give some examples. I had a pretty big experience last week, like I was telling you guys about the Small Business Expo. And for those of you who have caught part of this, you know that what I do, my business, Who Knew Healing, this isn't the plan that I had. I thought I'd be a wildlife biologist forever. Never did I think I'd own my own business. Never did I think I would be at a Small Business Expo. And along with all of that was growing in myself, growing in the business, and seeing myself as a businesswoman and what a businesswoman meant to me. I didn't see myself as a businesswoman because I don't have a business degree. I don't have staff. I don't automatically know how to do a lot of business things, right? I'm constantly teaching myself things. You guys have been a part of that a lot this last year. And those were my beliefs, though, around being a businesswoman, a business owner. And this year, I recognized that unconscious belief, and I realized how limiting it was. It was so limiting in that I wasn't seeing all that I had accomplished with my business, all of the people and animals that I had helped. I had blinders on because of my judgments of not having a business degree, of not having staff, like all of those things that I made mean what being a businesswoman looks like. And I realized I needed to redefine that for myself because it was so limiting, and it was not true. So through this, I have taught myself so many things, particularly this last year. My business has grown in so many ways. And the really cool effect, it's uncomfortable in the beginning, but really, really cool, is that now other people know it's possible, because a lot of this I did publicly, and they've seen me do it. They've seen me step out of my comfort zone, and now they know that it's possible for them, right? Like if the girl with all the head injuries can figure out how to do some of this stuff, anybody can. Anybody can have the dreams that they want to have. It is possible. There is always a way to create it. There is a reason that innovation is one of the core values of my business. And I was talking with someone earlier, and innovation just keeps coming up a lot in the last week and a half. So what I started to do was embody being a businesswoman. And that started catching that. What that means is started catching the thoughts where I was like, oh no, I can't do this, or oh, I don't belong in this group, or I'm not going to be able to do that, or I've got to figure it out myself. So that means that I'm not good at it. All lies. And when I started to embody being a businesswoman, because remember what I said at the beginning, it isn't about doing or being something else. I was already a businesswoman. I became a businesswoman the second I started my business, the day I launched it. But I didn't embody that part of it. I didn't let myself be all that I am because of those limiting beliefs. And so, like I said, I started changing it around needing the degree and teaching myself all of these things. I started to be massively more public with my business, right? This introvert got out there and started the blog. I started Monday nights, Insights with Alicia, that I absolutely love. There's more on social media. I manifested an awesome marketing class when I needed it, and I rewrote and redesigned my whole website. If I can do that stuff, you guys can too. Whatever your dream is, whatever your passion, there is a way. So if you have those kind of same limiting beliefs, start looking at them. And what it really was is I started to show the fuck up in my life in a big way in my business. And because what I wanted, right? One of the targets of my business, and my business is my passion. It's my life's path. It's why I'm here. And is to help as many people and animals as possible. Well, how does that happen? One of the ways is letting people know that I exist, right? Being public, stepping out there, saying, this is what I bring to the world. This is how I can help you. This is how we can change things. And because I've done it. So it took this process of, as I did those actions, my consciousness started to integrate all of these new awarenesses. Like I was telling you, right, there's that delay in your brain. It becomes the front part of the consciousness. And all of that showed up last week when I attended the Small Business Expo here in Phoenix. Like I said, in the past, torturous. I mean, those things alone for intuitive and empathic people, that kind of stuff is really challenging. Not even adding in the business part, like even going to a fun thing like that you got to use all your tools. And I never would have saw myself attending something like that, because that in the past, that was a bigger stage than just, me, myself, and my business. So not anymore. I was like, hello world, here I am. And this is going to happen and it's going to be great. And it was so reflected back to me over and over that is exactly where I was meant to be that day. I met some amazing people, right? The tax guy I met even before the expo changed my life in a matter of 5 minutes. I did a ton of networking, which is not something that has always been fun for me in the past, but I really enjoyed it. And I got to learn so much about all these other businesses that were out there, not only for myself, but for my clients, right? It's all about who I may not need your services, but there's someone else that might. And that's a big part of it for me. I know not everyone who networks looks at it that way. They're very much like, oh, I've got to get my business. But for me, I see it in a mutual contribution kind of way. And I gained a ton of experience in marketing, talking about what Who Knew Healing is and all of the services that I offer and how I get to help people and animals. And I even met a lot of people that I would love to work with as clients. And if I wasn't embodying all of me, right, if I hadn't integrated that, yeah, I'm a businesswoman, I own a small business, this is where I belong, that may not have happened. So, and it was so much fun for me because people always love the animal side of Who Knew Healing, which I do too. It's animals. Even if they don't believe it, right? Because for some people, the animal communication is a little too woo-woo for them. They may not believe it, but they're always intrigued. And it's hysterical to me that when I say that I'm a former wildlife biologist, how that adds credibility to the skeptics. I just love watching the human behavior of that. And they're always like, this lady's weird. Wait, what? You have a science degree? And they literally like lean in. I love watching it. And I'm like, yeah, because they're so fascinated about how the scientist became a mystic, like that's their word for it. And I even said to someone, I was telling this story of like, yeah, scientists, and they go, well, who knew? And I started to laugh because they then looked down in their hand, which was holding my business card, and they were like, oh my God, that's the name of your business. And I said, yeah. I said, that's exactly where it came from. So we both just cracked up because they hadn't even read my business card, but they got why my business is named the way that it is. It was pretty cool. So when my consciousness caught up to who I had become, right? I had become the future version of me. Like even this last year, I had set new targets for my business, and I had become that. We think that it's always so far off because we haven't achieved all of our targets. And so we don't catch the targets that we did set and that we have achieved, because sometimes in our humanness, we base certain targets as more of a priority or more significant. Usually it's tied to money and, material things and shelter and all that kind of stuff, which I totally get. And these other ones are just as important, just as valid, just as significant, because it's all connected, right? The more I embody all of who I am and recognize the business part of my business, right? It's like the intuitive part and how I help people. That part is just who I am. This other part of me, the business part, I had to grow. It's like you guys, I'm always telling you, is when we gain new things, it's like starting at the gym. You got to start with the 1 pound weight. I had to grow this part of my being. I had to grow this part of my soul so that it could integrate and support all of the great stuff that I get to do, right? All the intuitive part and my client part is like, now that business part is there as well. And they're going to work together to create and manifest even more. So through all of those actions, behaviors, and beingness is what embodying looks like. I wasn't doing anything different at the expo. I was just being all of me. I was being the intuitive life coach. I was being the mentor, the animal consultant, and I was being the business woman. So there's so many times that we believe we don't belong somewhere. And I really want you to ask yourself, is that really true that we don't belong there? Or is it a limiting belief that keeps us small and keeps us in doubt? Now, does that mean that everything is easy? Nope. Am I still going to be teaching myself business things? Yep. Yes, I am. It's an ongoing process, and that's okay. There isn't absolutely anything wrong with that. We're not meant to know everything. And at some point, as my business grows, I'll probably be able to hire people to do a lot of this stuff. And I mean, right now I'm teaching myself how to turn tonight's event into a podcast for Spotify and Apple. So for those of you who are listening to this in the near future from either one of those platforms, welcome. And the next project I'm going to teach myself is as much as possible about SEO, right? Which is how Google finds you on the internet and how you end up at the top of the Google search results. So I'm going to teach myself that. And and you know what else helps with getting to the top of the Google search is reviews. So if any of you out there feel inclined to write a review of Who Knew Healing on Google and tell other people how amazing I am, please do so. I would be thrilled. So I'm looking at the time there. I have another story, but all right, if I tell it fast, then you'll get another embodying story. So I'm just going to tell it super fast and you're not going to get all the details, but you'll get the gist of it. So when I started my business and I started to lean into the animal side of it, right? The animal communicator side. And y'all have heard bits and pieces of this along the way. I completely cut off the wildlife biologist part of it because that's not something that, I'm not in the field. I'm not looking at data. I don't function as just a wildlife biologist anymore. And I thought, well, to be an animal communicator, I only can use the intuitive part of me, right? That's what people are coming to me for. They're not coming to me for this other part. See how God, I can't even I almost want to throw up even saying that to you guys now because it's so limiting. It's so constricting, but that's where I was years ago, where I was like, oh no, I've got to be this way. So many times we put ourselves into boxes. And the truth is there's probably, I haven't met any personally, but I'm also, an introvert. So it's not that I'm the only person on the planet that does both of these things, but I would guess our numbers are pretty small as far as someone who has a science background and an education and lifetime of experience in behavior and environmental and zoology, and also is a, animal intuitive. So I bought into it has to look a certain way in the metaphysical world. And I cut that whole part of myself off. And then over time, as I started to work with clients, that part naturally comes up when I get to teach my clients of this is why your dog is doing that, or this is why your cat does it. They're not doing it on purpose. They're not chewing your shoes because they're, just trying to be a jerk. Dogs chew and dig. Those are two behaviors that they naturally do. That's what makes up half of being a dog. And as humans, if we want them in our life, we get to try and train them to not do it. Sometimes it is successful. Sometimes it's not, because they're innate behaviors of dogs. So you get to understand that if you're going to have a dog in your life, you're going to have to put your shoes away. If you have one that is just look, I'm not buying into it. Sometimes we can't train things. Even with Pip back here, this little booger, he refuses to learn. Well, that's not the correct language. He refuses to adhere by, because he knows exactly what he's doing, bite control, right? So bite control is when, particularly with cats in, because, dog bites definitely do a different kind of damage. But kittens are taught bite control by their mom, right? They're taught how hard to bite, how soft to bite, that kind of stuff, and they learn it with their litter mates, right? They're biting too hard and the other one whacks them, and it's all very physical. And usually cats automatically learn that. If you get a kitten who's too young, like I have had to teach some of my other kittens what bite control is, because they got taken away, separated from their mom too young, the accidents happen and that kind of stuff. And I did it with Pip. He full well knows what it is. He absolutely refuses to do it. He goes from 0 to 100. I constantly have to scruff him when we're playing to get off of me, because he just won't let go. He knows very well what he's doing. That's why my other cats, when I had them, they didn't want to play with him either. Like, look, he chokes us. He doesn't let go. So as a consequence, he doesn't get played with as much. But that's there's natural behaviors in cats. Cats, like there's always the joke that cats are assholes. They can be. I mean, I wouldn't trade him for anything in the whole world. And he does stuff where you're like, seriously. But that's cat behavior. Like, there's a part as us humans we sign up with when we go into relationship with animals. And it's one of the things, there's a lot of humans out there that don't realize this is what they signed up for. And that's the part where I get to teach them, like, this is the biology. This is natural behavior. These are the things that we can train. These are the things we can mitigate. And in the animal one, you guys heard me, the talk I did one Monday night about my client that has indoor outdoor cats. And she wanted me to get one of her cats to not go in a particular backyard. And I was like, I can tell him, but he loves that backyard. There's other cats in there and there's not a dog, right? He thinks he owns it. That's cat behavior. That's biology. So, but I had cut that part off for so long. As I was saying, I wasn't embodying being all of who I am. I wasn't being all of what I can bring to my clients. And so over time, that started to shift. And it was a super uncomfortable process for me, because I was still buying into so much of like, it had to, business has to look a certain way. And, but through feedback and just growth in myself and seeing that here's a whole lifetime of skills and information that I can offer my clients, why would I not? I integrated that, right? I became future me. It became part of my working consciousness. And now I embody both parts of those. And I love it. Like you guys hear me talk about it all the time. And it gets reflected back. Like, that's the stuff that the people who are skeptical or go, oh, well, this is that weird girl. They're like, wait a minute. Well, what if they became future clients, right? And I got to help them and their animals because of the science side. And so that's just another embodying story of when we stop cutting off parts of ourselves, when all of the work that we've done, all the growth that we've done starts to recognize or show up in our consciousness, and we start then being that person, right? I can't not be now the animal and consultant who isn't both parts of these. I can't go back. I'm not going to ever cut that part off, because it's part of me. I am now embodying both sides of this skill set, both sides. Pip. I'm sure you all can hear that. Pip is sneezing. That's going to sound great on Spotify. So in case you guys are listening and you want to know what that was, that's Pip, my cat, sneezing. So he likes to be part of it. Embodying is just being all of us and not cutting ourselves out anymore. So what I would like you guys to do is, as you step away tonight, think about the times in your life when this has happened. Recognize the places when you have embodied your true self, your full self, and recognize where you weren't being all of you and where you have some limiting beliefs. And even maybe for some of you, this is the first time, like you had no idea what this even was, and you're realizing it tonight, being part of us and part of this event. And now your brain is starting to turn. So whatever comes up for you, as you start to think about those things, acknowledge it, honor it, and if it's required, release it and move forward to being all of yourself, because none of us belongs in the corner. It's a little Dirty Dancing reference there, and it's true. Okay, that's all for this evening. I hope you have enjoyed yourself. I had a great time. Thanks for listening to my stories. I love being able to tell them to you guys. And as always, if there are people that you want to share this with, this video will be uploaded to YouTube tonight under Alicia Sweezer. All of these links that I'm going to talk about are in the event info. If you like insights like this, sign up for the blog. Join us every Monday night. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, as always, thank you to everyone who has donated to my cosmic tip jar. It allows me to create more free things like this and that I can give to people. If anyone feels led to do so, there's multiple links in the event info. There's options, multiple options. Thank you so much. And as always, if anything I talked about tonight makes you want to learn more, reach out, book a session, change your life. It's possible. If there's anything that you want to shift, it's just possible. You guys see me do it all of the time. So have a great week. I will see you next Monday. So excited. I have to wait a whole week to be with you all again. And it's October already. Can you guys believe that? Jeez, it blows my mind that it's already October. I'm not even sure where the summer went. All right, everyone, have a good night. Have a good week. I will see you next Monday.